Hi, eBay sellers. It's Suzanne, and welcome back to another Money Making Monday Vintage Edition. Thank you for stopping by my channel to learn about vintage items. In this video, I will be showing you sales from January of 2021. The sales in this video come from my Facebook group where every Monday we have a thread where sellers can post what they found, where they found it, how much they paid for it, how much they sold it for, and an interesting backstory, if there is one. So this video is all about real sellers just like you and the items they actually sold. So we're going to start off with Joy. And Joy, I have to know if your last name is really good enough or if that is just a play on words. Either way, I love it. And she said, not exciting at all, but I was cleaning out my filing cabinet and found this older vacuum manual. There were no comps. Put it up for sale for $9.99 with free shipping and accepted $8 the next day. Surprised the heck out of me because I was going to throw it in the trash, but decided at the last minute to just throw it on eBay with these horrible pictures and a one-line description. Mailing it out today. I'm including this sale because this shows that anything goes on eBay. And Joy didn't even feel like she made any effort on this listing, and it still sold for $8. So think about if you have a filing cabinet full of stuff, old papers, old documents, obviously nothing too personal, but these instruction manuals sell all the time because this vacuum, the Phantom Fury, was discontinued around 2001. So people may still need the manual. Or who knows, maybe they just collect old manuals. You just never know unless you ask your customer. So anyway, you may not think an $8 sale is worth mentioning, but I look at this as a teaching opportunity so that you will understand anything can have value on eBay. And to follow that, we've got Nancy Schultz, who says, this is from the you never know what will sell department. And I love that. This 25-cent PTL Club first edition tree ornament sold for $12. Now, those of you who have been around for a while will remember the PTL Club, which stands for Praise the Lord, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. And I will never forget them because we lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, when the whole PTL scandal went down. I think it was early 90s. And that was just all over the news all the time, and you could not escape it. And their headquarters was in North Carolina somewhere. But anyway, I just had to laugh when I saw this one because I love the name of her department. You never know what will sell. And yes, I remember the PTL Club. Who could forget it? Okay, next up is Laura Harmon, who got this free from her mom's house and sold it within 24 hours. Vintage Navy World War II lapel pin, and it sold for $18. Military collectibles are huge. So if you happen to inherit some military uniforms that have pins or bars or stripes on them, you might want to look into selling them as collectibles. I can't imagine a service person being any more proud of their uniform and pins going to a collector who would value them. I work with people all the time who inherit all kinds of stuff from parents and relatives, and sometimes even in complete storage units full of stuff. And maybe they don't treasure all the items in there. So you're really doing the deceased a service when you find the right home for the items they leave behind. Because if you don't treasure them and appreciate them, the items they leave behind, there's something wrong with putting that into the hands of a collector that will appreciate it. I think that's the right thing to do, instead of just letting things pile up for more decades and then someone else inherits it and doesn't know what to do with it. So try to be the buck stops here kind of person, where you manage things and you handle things and you rehome things so that the generations behind you don't have to do it. Okay, next up is Julie Gambino. She purchased this for 99 cents at Goodwill and sold it for $19.79. This is vintage Toll Italy gilt gold frame Madonna. It's basically a picture in a frame. Vintage. 99 cents, sold for $19.79. Next is Lynn Merritt. She found this in a jewelry jar from Goodwill, so cost just pennies. For some reason, these old Avon whistles from the 70s are desirable. Took a best offer of $21. I had a price of $24.99. Sold in 2 days, if that long. So this is a 1975 Avon whistle. It's a pendant necklace. And I didn't know these were collectible or desirable, so I'll definitely put that on my list going forward. Okay, now we have Patricia McKinley. Bought in a box at an estate auction, so about 75 cents. Took over a year to sell. Sold for $23 plus $14 shipping during a 10% off sale with best offer. This is vintage Anchor Hocking Fire King white milk glass pedestal bowl. A lot of good descriptive keywords in this listing. So her cost was 75 cents and she sold it for $23 plus shipping. And here's another one by Patricia. Bought at Salvation Army for $1 and sold for $24.29 with free shipping during a 10% off sale. Took 10 months. This is a vintage Dakin 1987 Panda Bear plush. $1, sold for $24.29. Now we have Ken Bryant. Picked this up from Goodwill for $5.95 and sold in 2 days for $25. Size 2 extra large, Paradise Found vintage parrot Hawaiian blue shirt. And that looks really fun and really loud and really colorful. $5.95, flipped it for $25 in 2 days. Savannah Boone. Paid 5 cents for this at a yard sale. It sold for full asking price in 6 months. Vintage 1973 Francie Sunset Malibu doll. So it's like a Barbie doll. With bendable knees. I remember those. Sold for $26 and it cost her 5 cents. Olivia Poole. Bought this backpack for $3. Sold to a prop department in Canada for full price of $27.99 with expedited shipping paid by the buyer. Now I just hope it gets there in time. It's been delayed quite a bit. This is a vintage JanSport green backpack with a leather bottom. And Ken Bryant commented, I love these. That's my first scan when looking at bags, leather bottoms. And Dana also commented, yes, great tip for a visual scan of items. So what are they talking about, visual scan? Well, when you go in a thrift store, garage sale, estate sale, you're not going to pick up every single item and evaluate it. You are looking for certain things. So this would be one of those things. If there are a bunch of backpacks, tote bags, that section of Goodwill has all those kind of soft bags that are not handbags and purses. You want to look for items with a leather bottom. And of course, things like the LL Bean canvas tote bags that sell for $300, the Cavu bags that are crossbody hiking type bags. You have certain things you're going to look for all the time. The more experienced you are, the faster you get at this because you're not having to constantly stop and look everything up. So the more visual cues you can remember to look for, the faster you're going to be able to source items, and it just makes your whole business more efficient. All right, we have Julie Gambino again. She purchased this at Goodwill for $1.99, sold in a couple of weeks for best offer of $30. This is an antique vintage wood Weiss recipe box with handwritten newspaper and magazine clippings. So this is just a little box of history. The $30 probably wasn't even for the box, it was for what was in it. And Charlie Bates commented, "Oh, I love it. Would love to go through the recipes." Me too. That would be fun. But when you see these types of things, old cookbooks with handwritten notes or recipe boxes like this with recipes that were clipped out of the newspaper or magazines that may not even exist anymore, newspapers go out of business all the time, and recipe cards with beautiful cursive penmanship, which is a dying art. All of that is history, and people collect that stuff. So look inside these little boxes and see what's in there because there could be some treasures. Okay, Helen Newton bought this in mid-September at a flea market, paid $5, sold for offer of $35 plus shipping. Had damage, which I disclosed in the title and showed with a close-up photo. This is a vintage Lladró figurine. Yes, that's how you pronounce it, Lladró. It is Spanish. So there you've learned a new word today, if you didn't already know that. This was from 1986 to 2005. It was a figurine, which ceramic, porcelain, and sold for $35 even though it had damage. Okay, now we have Eileen Cole. She said, these vintage Valentines were part of an estate sale bundle. I have about $10 into them. Sold them for $36.39 plus shipping via offer to watchers and sold in 2 days. This is a lot of 38 antique and vintage Valentines from 1900s to 1920s. I bet that was a treasure. And I did go look at her listing, and some of these had handwriting on them. So someone had saved their collection of Valentines that they received with little notes, beautiful cursive penmanship. I bet that was really interesting to come across and to just look through before selling them. I love stuff like that with history involved. And Julie Gambino is back again. She says, Mardi Gras is coming. Sold for full asking price of $38.99. Took a couple of months. This is a vintage JGet masquerade mask rhinestone brooch. And she didn't say how much she paid for it, but I'm sure she didn't pay very much. So that's a very cool looking brooch that sold just in time for Mardi Gras. Now we have Cindy Villa, who has been working very hard on her store. She joined the premium library about a month ago and needed help. And I think we've got her turned around because she's starting to sell some things. So, congratulations, Cindy. I know you've been working really hard on improving your store and getting your sales going again. She said she bought this at a thrift store for $3, senior day with 25% off, sold in a day for best offer of $39. I started at $49.90. They bid $30. We went back and forth 7 times. So she hung in there until she got the price she wanted. Bought this for $3 and it finally sold for $39. It's a vintage Victorian doll display throw blanket from the 80s. Next up is Zuzka, who paid $2.99 at Goodwill. Sold for full asking price after 1 month. This is a mid-century modern vintage large boxer dog ashtray, and it sold for $39.99. Her cost was $3, so sold for over 10 times her initial investment. And that's what happens with vintage items because they're only going to increase in value. The older they get, the more they're going to be worth, and the fewer of them will be out there, so it's a supply and demand thing. And that's really why I have transitioned so much from mostly clothing in my eBay store to vintage and collectible items because the profit margins are just so much higher and the items are more scarce. So scarcity creates value. Just remember that when you're choosing items to resell. If you're selling the same stuff everybody else is selling, it's going to be really hard to make a profit because of the supply. The supply is greater than the demand. But when you choose items that are scarce or not being made anymore, then you're going to have higher margins, obviously based on what you're paying for it when you're buying it, but the less there is of something, the more it's worth. All right, now we have Carol Kirk. She says, free to me from my personal collection. I bought these 3 pairs of 1928 costume jewelry earrings back in the mid-80s. I sold them for $41. They took a few months to sell. So you can look at the photo there. Beautiful dangly earrings. Vintage 1928 earrings, dangle Victorian stones, pierced, gold tone post, lot of 3. And you can see that her asking price there was just under $60, but she took an offer of $41 for something that she just had in her personal collection for quite a while. Probably 40 years now? So another example of something increasing in value because it's older. Next up is Lynn Connor, who paid $1 at a church thrift store, sold almost immediately. This is a Dimensions Sunset cross-stitch kit. And Lynn, I hope you're doing well. Lynn used to be my neighbor up here in North Atlanta and moved to Florida, where it looks like she is thriving with her eBay business and still finding all kinds of goodies. All right, Ginger bought this 3 years ago at a local thrift store for $3. I've raised and lowered the price multiple times. When I finally got an offer, I jumped on it. Glad to see it go. This is a vintage brown mink fur collar coat. And yeah, I feel that. But really, you can't beat yourself up for things that don't sell because it happens to everybody. And when you first purchase these items, you're really excited about them selling quickly, and sometimes they just don't. And my litmus test of do I want to keep something in my inventory is, would I buy that item today to resell? Because your knowledge is always increasing, but eBay is also changing, and what people want is changing. So, for example, 2020, I couldn't really give away office type clothing, skirts, blouses, men's sport coats. They just weren't selling. And that's because the whole work environment and culture changed. Everybody was on Zoom having their meetings or working at home, and so it didn't matter what they wore. So I switched to selling more athletic clothing, t-shirts, leggings, pajamas, outdoor wear like coats and outdoor fitness wear, because people are dying to get outside. They've all been cooped up in lockdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it, and that has nothing to do with the quality of the career wear I was selling. It was just everything in the world changed. So you have to be adaptable and willing to change with it. But, I'm with you, Ginger, on this one, that if I only paid $3 for something and eventually it's going to sell, I'm not going to beat myself up about that. But holding on to this 3 years is great. Good for you for holding out. And you sold this for about 15 times your initial investment. So it still paid off. But I just did that little speech on clothing because, everything changed in 2020. And we don't know when or if it's ever going to go back to the way it was. Now that people know how to use these virtual meeting software like Zoom or FaceTime and all that kind of stuff, that's how we were communicating for personal and for work. I don't know how the career wear, office culture type clothing market is going to come back, if it ever will, because we're just not doing all these things in person anymore. People are at home and they want to be comfortable. And, if only from your shoulders up is going to show on your Zoom meeting, does it really matter what you're wearing? And the answer is no. So I said all that just to say, every 6 months to a year, you want to go through your inventory, evaluate what you're selling. If something doesn't have a lot of offers on it, or it never shows up in your send offer workflow, and you probably wouldn't buy it right now to resell, then it's time to maybe donate it and move on. That's a personal decision, but keep in mind that it's not always about you and your knowledge. It's about what's changing in the world and how is eBay changing and what do people want. And that's what you've got to stay on top of, is to be a successful seller, you just have to sell things that people want. So moving on to Angela. She says, who says VHS tapes don't sell? Paid $10 at a yard sale. Sold an individual one for $18, and then these. Took approximately 6 months to sell. This is a VHS lot of 30 video cassette tapes, sealed, Disney, and more. And there's some conversation on her post that says, Karen Tingler says, were all of these new and sealed or just some of them? Glad they sold so well. And Angela said, all of these were sealed. There were more unsealed that I put on Facebook for free. And then Lisa says, wow, unsealed, heavily used VHS for $2 at our Goodwill. Sadly, they never put out sealed Disney VHS. Great find. Yeah, this is surprising. I see these Disney VHS all the time, and I don't really even pay attention to if they're sealed or not, but I am now. And just a side note, if you're not aware of the urban legend of Disney VHS selling for hundreds or thousands of dollars, that's not real. That is money laundering. It's just not real. So Don't fall into that trap of thinking that. But this listing is very interesting that these Disney VHS tapes would sell for so much. So I'm going to start looking for those when I'm at my Goodwill, because they are nice enough to separate the Disney VHS from all the other ones. So that would be easy enough to sort through. I guess I should have titled this video The Julie Gambino Show because she has a lot of great items this week. She said, "Christmas is the gift that keeps on giving. Purchased in a bag of ornaments from Goodwill for 99 cents. Sold in about 1 to 2 weeks for $58.49. This is a vintage Costal white velvet wax angel from West Germany. That is beautiful." Moving on to Diana Juhan, who paid $20 for a lot of old toys. So her cost was about $5. Originally had this listed in a Bonanza lot, but a collector let me know what it was and that it would be advisable to sell it separately. I redid my listing and separated this one out. Sold after 1 day for best offer of $59.49 plus shipping once I separated it out. This is a vintage 1960s Johnny West Mark's Best of the West Thunderbolt Palomino horse. And Charlie commented that, "I love when kind people give me good advice on eBay. Great sale." And Diana agreed that she was very grateful that someone was so kind. And I agree. I love it when I get messages from other sellers or buyers helping me make my listing better or filling in the gaps on things I don't know. So eBay can be a very helpful community. And don't be insulted if somebody messages you with more information than you had, because you're only going to come out better in the end. And nobody knows everything. Everyone has specialties of what they know, but nobody knows everything. So it's good that the community can come together and help each other out. Okay, we've got Eileen Cole with another item. She paid $5 for this vintage seed corn sack at a flea market. Sold for $62.50 plus shipping by offers to watchers and took 6 months to sell. This is a vintage Chelsea hybrid seed corn cloth sack bag from South Carolina Plantation. And just think about this. Okay, how old is this bag? 80 years old, 75 years old? I don't know. But what if our ancestors knew that things like a feed sack bag would go for so much money on the open market all these years later? I mean, this was probably made during the Depression and, when people had nothing. So I just find this fascinating that such mundane utilitarian items can sell for so much money because they become collectible. This is a piece of history. Dana asked, "Did you have to roll this for shipping or were you able to fold it?" Meaning it could have been really stiff, and one way to ship it would be to roll it around a cardboard tube or PVC or something so that you could reduce the size of it to ship it. And Eileen said that she folded it and used a padded mailer, so apparently it wasn't too stiff to manipulate. But anyway, this is a really interesting item, something that's just so old and so mundane could sell for so much money. Okay, now we've got Lynn LeMaster bought this World War II garrison cap with captain's pin and airborne parachute patch at an estate sale on Friday for $15. I listed it last night and woke up this morning to a $69.99 sale. So you can see there, it is definitely a vintage military item. It looks like it's in pristine condition. $15 turned into $70 in just a couple of days. Now we've got Zuzka again, who paid $4.99 at Goodwill, sold for full asking price after 2 months. Vintage Ralph Lauren Safari Climate Response Body Powder from 1989, sold for $85. And I have found this exact thing. It must have been about 10 years ago because I was selling on Amazon at the time and doing consignment for a local thrift store and then just selling a few items on my own. And it's funny what you remember, but I remember items by what I was doing at the time, the ages of my kids, where I got the item, what the weather was that day. I remember a lot of information that may not really be useful, but it's in there. But this Ralph Lauren Safari powder, I sold it for about this much. So I said all of that to say that it definitely holds its value. It is vintage. They're not making it anymore. And Zuzka paid $5 for it and sold it for $85 in a pretty short period of time. Okay, now we have our resident expert, George Kelly. Sold 2 more of the German Bathing Beauties figurines that I bought at a garage sale last summer for $1 each. Accepted best offer of $46 each from a buyer in Luxembourg. And you can see there, these are antique German bisque nude bathing beauties. $92. So I'm not sure. Oh, he said, yeah, $46 each. So he only paid $1 each. And you may remember from our interview video, back in 2018, George used to either own or work for an estate sale company. So he is just a wealth of knowledge. He's probably seen it all. He knows what to look for as far as what makes something valuable. So on my bucket list is going to an estate sale with George and having him teach me what he knows, because he's just a wealth of information and helps everybody in the group. And I really appreciate you, George. All right, moving on to Kim. Cleaning out clothes, free to me. Listed last Saturday for $149.95. 3 offers in less than an hour. Took the highest one. Who knew? This is a vintage 2001 Disney Pixar Monsters, Inc. movie promo t-shirt. So just cleaning out some clothes and found a t-shirt that she sold for just under $100. So that works. Now we've got Lisa, who paid $6 at a thrift store. This was listed for 6 months. Vintage 90s polo sport Ralph Lauren hooded down coat. So you can see there it's sold for $99.99 and she only paid $6 for it. Savannah Boone. I bought this at an estate sale for $2.50. It sold for full asking price in a month. Vintage Cracker Barrel 18-inch witch dog Halloween decor. And it's Cracker Barrel, so they have limited edition items that were only made for a short period of time, which means they're limited in number and the value is only going to increase. So her cost was $2.50 and it sold for just under $100. Now we've got Lee Mowry. This item was free, was left in a barn when they bought their house. It was sold for $120 on best offer after 6 months. And it is a vintage tall Native American drum. What a cool item to find. Okay, we've got Lee with another item. Paid $1 at a yard sale. Sold for $145 on best offer after a month. Antique kerosene Berger lantern. $1 sold for $145. Jenny Baum paid $10 at a thrift store for this vintage one-piece snowsuit. Sold it in 5 days. And that looks like something that you would see on like an 80s or 90s music video. Just very funky looking. And finally, the last one in this video is Lynn Merritt with her brown bag cookie art mold. She found 8 of these at Savers, paid $1.87 each. When searching for comps, I couldn't find 2 of them. Sold in 1 week at auction for $191. Thanks to Suzanne's BOLO information. Another one of those, never in a million years would I have even looked at these to sell. So this particular one is the Be Mine Valentine envelope cookie mold. And there is some conversation on this. Ken said, any idea what made these items so special versus other brown bag molds? Lynn said, this one was 1983. Absolutely no comps. The woman who owned Brown Bag started her company in 1983, so it's an early piece. I started the bids at $49.99. Collectors must not have seen this one before. And then Chandra said, I've sold a lot of these over the years. There are a few really rare gems, but most are only worth $5 to $10. But you found a rare one. Congratulations. And I agree with that. I see these all the time, the brown bag cookie molds, but there's only a few that are really high dollar collector items. So you just have to look them up. Okay, that wraps up this episode. Thank you to everyone who posts on Money Making Mondays because you're helping the whole community learn. These videos are about you and your success. So just keep going, keep moving forward, even when sales are slow, because it always turns back around again. And you never know, the next thing you find could be that rare item that's worth a lot of money. And you wouldn't have known about it unless you studied the Money Making Mondays posts. So thanks again. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you in the next video. Have a profitable and productive day on eBay. Bye.